Okay.
The clerk apologized.
And by consent, I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome back, everybody. First public council meeting in the new year. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our first item is the minutes of the public hearing held Monday, December 10th, and the recommendations that these minutes be approved.
Moved by Councillor Reamer, second by Councillor Robinson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 2 is the minutes of the regular council meeting held Monday, December 10th. Recommendations to approve.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Sorry, that was Councillor Hodge on the second.
Item 3 is the minutes of the Riverview Lands Advisory Committee meeting of Tuesday, November 20th. Recommendation to receive.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Robinson, second by Councillor Reamer. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 4 is the minutes of the Sustainability and Environmental Advisory Committee meeting of Wednesday, November 28th. Recommendation to receive.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Reamer. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 5 is the minutes of the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee meeting of Thursday, November 29th. Recommendation to receive.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Reamer, second by Councillor Robinson. Councillor O'Neill.
I was absent from this meeting. I'm not noted as being absent, though. I wonder if I should be noted. I'm the vice chair of the advisory committee. Are vice chairs noted? They're not known? Okay. Thank you.
I did want to find out he wasn't obliged to.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. And you undoubtedly were missed.
There's an item of council business arising out of that committee's meeting. The Arts and Culture Advisory Committee seek council's recommendation that council direct staff to initiate the planning process for the city's 125th anniversary celebrations, including the identification of available resources and budget, and that the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee plays an active role in planning and decision-making process with respect to this anniversary.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Councillor Nicholson.
I'll just take a moment, if I can, to say that although Councillor O'Neill wasn't there to see it, he won't be surprised to learn that this stems from the enthusiasm that that committee has looking forward to the 125th anniversary, and their determination to be involved and work really hard, which we intend to challenge them to do. Thank you.
Outstanding. Well, it's going to be a big celebration. We've got lots to look forward to. Mr. Clerk.
Item 6 is the minutes of the Tri-Cities Homelessness and Housing Task Group meeting of Friday, December 7th. Recommendation to receive.
Second. Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 7 is the minutes of the Maillardville Commercial and Cultural Revitalization Advisory Committee meeting of Wednesday, December 19th. Recommendation to receive.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Robinson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Do you have any more minutes?
We're busy.
No holiday for the clerk's department. Item 8 is fourth and final reading of the Development Cost Charges Bylaw number 4339. The staff recommendations that council give fourth and final reading to Development Cost Charges Bylaw number 4339.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 9 is the City of Coquitlam zoning amendment, bylaw number 4354. This is a text amendment to permit accessory amusement arcades within the CS1 service commercial zone. This item was deferred from the previous council meeting. The recommendations that council give first, second, third, fourth, and final readings to City of Coquitlam zoning amendment, bylaw 4354.
Moved by Councillor Reamer, second by Councillor Asmussen. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I won't be supporting this. I think this opens the door to kiddie gambling. I visited one of the locations in the city that has these kinds of machines, and they clearly, you pay money, buy tokens, put the tokens in the machine, take a chance. You may win some points, some tokens, some something, and then you may take them over to a counter and use them, exchange them for prizes, for merchandise. And that to me is gambling. I don't think that we need to provide opportunities to teach children to gamble. And that's my position on this. it seems to me to be completely inappropriate, not what we need to encourage our children to do. Thank you.
Thank you. I have similar concerns. I won't go into them. This makes me uncomfortable. It makes me uncomfortable. Councillor Reamer.
Thank you. So currently, that particular area allows a certain number of amusement arcades, and I believe it's 3, but with this new text amendment would take it up to be above 5. I'm just wondering how that fits with the 10% of space that is allocated under the bylaw.
To the chair, Your Worship, my understanding is that the 10% sort of cap or ceiling on the floor space devoted to that, given the layout that they have there, would work out to, I believe it's 5 games a chance.
So we're going, we'd be going from currently 3 machines up to 5.
I'm not sure on that point, because currently this property is the CS1 zone, and the accessory amusement arcades are not permitted, but this would permit them within CS1 zone in addition to the lobby of theaters, but with those restrictions around it. So this would allow for what I'm advised is up to 5 games that they have in that area to meet the 10% ceiling cap.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks. I'm going to support this because I'm not as concerned about it. Although, you know, the issue of gambling and gambling addiction is a serious one. I don't think we're going to be looking at something like, remember the Pleasure Island in the Pinocchio, where it's all this debauchery going on, luring kids into a lifestyle of sin and depraved actions and things like that. You remember Pleasure Island? It's quite a stirring scene there. I don't think we're going to get this. And I am recalling as well that there's a certain natural instinct among children to gamble. I remember in my elementary school, a certain time every year, everybody brought their baseball cards out, and we threw those against the side of the building, and the guy who gets the closest, he won all the baseball cards. We also played marbles. We had a little, we used to make one of my classmates' fathers, legendary Bill Cunningham, the photographer for the Vancouver province. So every spring, when we brought out our marbles, Bill Cunningham would be there taking pictures of the kids playing marbles as one of the signs of spring coming to Vancouver. You can look up the old province newspapers from the mid-'60s and early '60s and find that. And we'd be playing for keeps. You know, you do various things, you get all that guy's marbles, and there's some skill, there's some gambling, there's that's kind of an instinct among children, among all of us. You know, games with chance. I don't think what we're seeing here is dangerous in any sort of way. I think it's quite limited. This particular facility that's in question here, is one that provides a lot of amusement and entertainment for children, and this is, I think, part of an overall package. So, and generally, had this general zoning amendment bylaw take effect, I don't think we'll create a big problem. If we see a big problem happening, I mean, you can always come back to us at another date for, we can always look at that. But at this stage, I think this is a sort of thing that I can certainly live with. Thank you.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I too used to gamble with hockey cards. I'd forgotten about that. I never really thought about it as gambling, or gaming, as they like to say. But it is, I guess, a game of chance. I always thought it was my skill. So really, this zone already permits 3. So it's not about whether we are providing children with access to these games. They already have it. It's just, is there going to be 3, or is it going to be 10% of the floor space? So those are really the choices. It's not 0 and some. It's 3 or +2. So not exposing children to these sorts of activities is actually not what we're being asked to do. They're already exposed, they already have access. So I feel like the horses are already out of the stable on this one, especially given that it's in movie theaters, all kinds of other places. The other thought I had was that under this particular area, I mean, this is where parents take children. Children don't really have access on their own, so they're being supervised, and I'd like to believe that parents are supervising their children and educating them about the risks of gambling. Although I have to be really honest, I never really saw this as, in my own perspective, as gambling. It was really about a game, and you collected some things, and usually my children were never patient enough to collect enough tokens to actually turn them into anything, because they would get bored with them, and I'd like to believe that children will bored with them very quickly. And then finally, I think if you take a look at access to internet and the kinds of games that children are already playing, there's tons of that, and there's programs where you collect things and then you get another life. So for me, this is one where the horses are out of the stable, folks. This is about sort of how do we manage and how do we encourage children to do this sort of stuff responsibly. So I'm going to support it because I don't think it really changes anything. I think it's already the kinds of things that are already happening. So I'm fine to support this one.
There we go. Councillor Nicholson. Again? Oops. I'm going to ask Councillor Asmundson.
Sure.
Can we activate Councillor Asmundson's microphone?
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to support this. I look at this as a parental responsibility. If you as a parent feel that this is not sufficient for your kids, you don't take the kids there. I'm going to echo what Councillor Robinson said. Basically, there's a lot of all these apps and everything that you get on your phones, your computers, and kids play today run about the same type of thing. And you look at most teenagers today, most kids today, one of the biggest games they like to play, whether they're playing for money or not, is Texas Hold'em. And, you know, it's just a huge thing out there. So to go at a 10%, there's 3 there now. You may have 5, or maybe someplace may have 6 or 7. I don't think it's a real huge problem. I don't think it's going to add to the problem at all. And I think if you're a parent and you don't agree with this type of, you don't take your kids there, because the kids aren't going there themselves, and they're going there while the parents taking them for either a birthday party or something else to be there, and they're not going there every day of the week to go gambling. They're going there maybe once every 4, 5, 6 months down to this place to play these games. So I don't see the problem with this, and I don't see this as really gambling at all. Thank you.
I'm going to go to Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, maybe my wife and I weren't very good parents, but when we used to go to a similar operation in Coquitlam when our children were a lot smaller than they are now, one of the benefits of that place was that we didn't particularly supervise them. There was a place where we could sit at a table and have a Coke and a slice of pizza, and they knew where to come and find us when they needed some more tokens, or someone skinned their knee, and you could kind of keep an eye on them, but we'd seen what was available in the place and weren't concerned about it. I take Councillor O'Neill's points about baseball cards and marbles, but he kind of plays right into my hands, because whenever I went home with absolutely no marbles, it was very clear to me that those were games of skill and not games of chance. And that's the distinction that you find in the criminal code. And I don't have a bag of marbles from when I was young at home, do you? I'll bet you do. Or perhaps your children have them. It's not clear to me. We talk about you're allowed 3 in the CS1. I'm not sure that that's the case. Does CS1 allow for these games at all? Or where does this 3 that we keep hearing about come from?
Mr. McIntyre.
Your Worship, I have to bet, I don't know exactly the 3 number that's being thrown around here. That may be the number of machines that are there. What's in the bylaw right now in the CS1 zone and what's before council for final consideration is a bylaw that will allow for these types of accessory amusement arcades in addition to the lobby of theaters in the CS1 zone in these facilities, child entertainment facilities. And so, and the cap is the 10%. Now, the numbers may relate to what's on site and what is possible on site given the 10%. I suspect that's where the numbers come from. But if you look at the bylaw, that's what's being proposed, and that's what would be accommodated within that.
Okay, I understand reasonably clearly what's proposed. What I'm not clear about is what's presently provided for in the bylaw before this passes, should it pass.
Your Worship, currently under the CS1, that's the service commercial zone, as one of the permitted uses, there is the, or as accessory use is accessory amusement arcades where accessory to a movie theater or located within the lobby of a movie theater. So that's what the CS1 zone permits now. So what this
only in movie theaters. So anything that's going on somewhere else now is not within the bylaw.
In addition, I believe the C2 zone, that's the shopping center zone, allows for them in those shopping center environments as well.
Or amusement arcades.
Amusement arcades, that's right.
And I have one final question. The bylaw, as it's worded, talks about no independent access. Prohibit independent, direct public access to an accessory amusement arcade.
Your Worship, I believe that relates back to the earlier zoning bylaw amendments that were done when these were permitted initially in the lobbies of the theaters in the CS1 and in the shopping centers. The notion then was, I guess the concern was free access and who might be using it. That by limiting it that way, it's making it sort of secondary and accessory, and you have to go through the main business premises to actually access that amusement arcade.
Okay, and I haven't been and looked, but certainly that's not the case in the movie theater. It's the first thing you see when you come through the door. And before you present your ticket.
Yeah, it's within the lobby of the, if I recall, it's just off the side, within the lobby of the Cineplex here.
Yeah.
Okay, and my final point would be, yeah, maybe we do already have some of this stuff. We're talking about expansion. We're talking about doing more of it. I'd rather we didn't do any, but I certainly can't support more. Thank you.
Councillor Reamer.
Thank you. Well, I am going to support this. I am aware that it is being done at places like Chuck and Cheese's in other municipalities. And like Councillor Robinson said, it is already being done in places such as the movie theater, etc. I also want to just clarify that this is an accessory amusement arcade. It's not primary. And so I am going to support this. It's 3 + 2 = 5, and I'm not overly concerned that this is going to become an overwhelming problem. I don't think it will be a problem at all. Thank you.
You, Councillor Sikora, for the first time.
You know, this one I looked at hard and I thought about it, for a long time. All we're doing here is creating an addiction for our kids and other people to gamble. That's all it is, really, strictly, people now can go to Safeway, Thrifty's, or any one of those stores. Now they get a coupon, a scratch and win. And, the other day, somebody comes home and guess what? She won a chocolate bar at Safeway. On those pull tabs. I mean, how silly is that? So, look, I've gone to the casino. I'll tell you, one time I went there every day for about 2 weeks. Okay? Just to see what is happening for myself. I want to learn. People tell me stories. Do I believe it? Well, maybe you can believe some of it, maybe you can't. See for yourself. Okay? Guess what? I met this one lady that said she spent in the last year $60,000 in the casino. $60,000. I remember when I was a member of Parliament, I got calls from kids in Alberta saying that the mother takes them to a parking lot, leaves them in the parking lot all night, and she gambles. That's addiction of the worst kind, okay? And, you know, I have great problems giving this thing any, you know, where does this bylaw, why is this bylaw before us? Because somebody requested it, or do we think that we're, or they've got some other cities, you know, already done? You know, what's a nice comment, already done in some other cities. Do we have to follow? I don't think so. What I can say to you, what is the benefit for the city of Coquitlam having these arcades almost in any commercial area, in a commercial store? What is the benefit? What are we teaching something good to the kids in this community? I don't think so. So you know, maybe we're collecting money. Maybe that's the only thing. There's money in it for the city of Coquitlam. You know, is there?
Mr. McIntyre.
Your Worship, I'm not aware of that. I believe this business would be under a certain business license category, and there'd be a certain fee for that.
A separate license fee?
No, for the business altogether. There wouldn't be a separate license for this accessory use.
If somebody could convince me that it's a benefit to our community, of some way, it's a benefit to the children of our community. It's addiction. That's what it is. And I'll tell you, get them addictions where you get them young to start gambling, and when they grow up, they keep on gambling. And you know, I'll tell you, it's and as I said, I've gone to the casino, I've seen it. Where I'll tell you what, these people there on a daily basis, and that A&T machine is just going constantly, you know, and they're coming running in, and they gotta get lucky today because yesterday had a bad day, you know. And guess what? They have another bad day, and another bad day, you know. Like I remember one time saying to the casino people, you announce, and then, you know, every so often on the PA system, congratulations, so-and-so won $6,000 on the machine, so-and-so. Why don't you advertise the losers the same way? No, they don't. I mean, you know, there's thousands of losers compared to one winner, you know. So the thing is it a good thing? It's not a good thing. If it was a good thing, that somehow it gave the city benefit or something, a plus to the city to make it look better, I'd support it. But I can't support it the way it is. I wouldn't support something like that for no money in the world. Thank you.
Councillor Hodge.
Yeah, so I've really been sort of mulling this one over because, you know, as a parent of three young boys, and I've seen, you know, I won't say the addiction to gambling, but the addiction to gaming and game playing. And, you know, and as a parent, I don't allow video games in our house. My boys will tell you that they're hard done by because we don't have video games. We don't have iPads. They don't have that stuff because I've seen them get addicted to the play. And at the same time, you know, I want them to be able to go to recreation facilities, and when they were younger, we did go to Crash Crawlies, and it was great on a rainy day. It was a place you could go, and we'd been to birthday parties, and it was great because it encouraged physical activity and recreation. But I am concerned that now when I go to take the family out to a movie or something, that right beside them are games of what I would say, in most cases, games of chance. But that's as a parent. That's just a personal feeling that I have. And on the other side, I sort of feel that it's a parent's responsibility. As a parent, I have a responsibility to determine what games and what I want my kids to do, and once they're 18, they'll make their own decisions. So part of me says that it's up to parents to exercise some parental guidance in these situations. I agree that, you know, maybe, you know, my preference would be not to see these games in the community, but we already allow them in certain areas. And, you know, and I'm also thinking, well, you know, from a business standpoint, we don't want to create an unlevel playing field for businesses that are in the area. So I guess my question is, I just want some clarification, because I thought I had this, and now I'm a little more confused after Mr. McIntyre's explanation, so maybe he could just go through it again for me. I understand that this bylaw amendment is to allow them in C1 in addition to the current places that are allowed, which are movie theaters. But where they're operating today, and this, I ask this question only because there's some discussion while they're already there, we're only going from 3 to 5. But my reading of this, should they be there now?
Okay, so the zone is CS1, and should they be there? Mr. McIntyre.
Yes, thank you, Worship. And I'm sorry, just to clarify on that, look at the definition section in the zoning bylaw, and that's where the 3 number comes from. So if council just will permit me, there's a definition for amusement arcade in the zoning bylaw, and it is an area or place within a building in which 3 or more amusement machines are available for use, which are coin or token operated. So that's where the number 3 comes from. So it says an area where there's 3 or more machines. And so with the 10% cap applied to the floor area of Crash Crawlies, that apparently works out to this 5 machine number. So that's the numbers there. And as mentioned, currently in the CS1 zone, it's only allowed where accessory to a movie theater and it's located within the enclosed lobby space. So with this text amendment, what we're doing is then proposing to expand that to include children's play centers without restriction around 10% of the floor area.
But without the addition up to the 10%, can you operate in a CS if you have 2? Can you still operate there with 2? Is it only an increase of 3 that we're making the change for? Or are we opening up new areas or new businesses?
No, my reading of this definition for this permitted use as amusement arcade, it would 3 or more. So it must be a minimum threshold of 3.
Right. But can any business currently in a CS1 put in 2?
No, I would say not. It only allows it in that number in those locations.
So this is an expansion.
And this is, yes, it would add this to one other type of business in the CS1 zone, the children's play.
An expansion of the types of businesses that could have it. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I think I understand now exactly what this text amendment will do, and I'm really grateful to hear Councillor Sikora wants the city to look good. I think that's a really good thing, and I'm glad to hear you say that, because I'd like to hold you to that, making sure that we continue to look good and in a positive light, Councillor Sikora. So thank you for bringing that up. I too have had experience with adults mostly who have gambling problems, some teenagers, as a family therapist, and it's never pretty and it's always very nasty. But what I'm scrambling to do is to try to understand if these sorts of games, because I think children do see them as games. I don't think they perceive it as gambling. To find some research that suggests that somehow it leads them to problem gambling. And I'm not convinced that that's the case. Because I think for years, I think like Councillor O'Neill said, that these are the sorts of things that, you know, people, we have a natural propensity, I think is what he said, to try our luck at things. Right? Can you make it? I bet you can't make it over that log. And then we challenge each other to do that. I mean, it's based on skill, it's also based on luck, and sometimes it's just based on plain old stupidity. But it's that propensity. So and I'm sure that serves some sort of valuable maturing purpose. So here we come and we have these games, and you get, tokens, and then you turn the tokens in for something. And I almost feel like we're starting to split hairs in so many different ways. And this is just one of those that I'm not sure that this is as big a concern as our biggest fears are. I think there are much bigger concerns. The other part of it that strikes me as a parent is if I have concerns, and I certainly appreciate Councillor Hodges' perspective, because my children I was the meanest mother in the world because we did not allow video games. And because I wanted them to do it responsibly and I wanted them to be ready, and I wanted to be the one that says, this is how you gamble. And I did introduce my children to gambling, and I wanted them to lose really fast, really hard, and unfortunately it didn't work with one of my kids. They actually kept winning, but eventually lost. So, you want to make sure at some point they're going to be 18 and they're going to get to go and do this. So this is just one of those where I just think that we're getting into splitting hairs. I'm not sure that it has the kind of impact that we're concerned about. So I'm not going to get in the way of moving this forward. But I am just so tickled to hear that Councillor Sikora really wants us to continue to look good, and I really wanted to say how much I appreciated that.
Okay. Well, I'm pleased to say that Councillor Sikora and I stand in lockstep on this issue. We stand in solidarity. Couldn't agree with him more. Actually, on those words, not as big a concern. I don't think it's as big a concern as all that. I think it's a concern, though. I think what we're doing is there are new ways every day to make parenting more difficult. I know parents. I know this one parent whose son hates her, I think, because she won't allow video games in the house, and therefore the son has to go to somebody else's house, and they can't have friends over because there's no video games and that sort of thing. We've been very limited as a family in the types of video games, although we managed to see that some snuck into the house, so we weren't limited enough. But I think that parenting is a really big challenge right now, and when we offer more and more choices for activities that do mimic gambling, then we make parenting even harder. These aren't games of skill. It's not like, can you make it over the log? That's obviously a skill. There's something to do with it. Can you flip a coin, and do you have a 50% chance of losing? That's 100% gambling, and it's teaching kids, I think, something that isn't necessarily a life skill. I take big offense, actually, with the way BC Lotteries says use your game sense, as though people actually have some sixth sense called game sense. They know when to gamble or something, and they know what to bet. I think it's the wrong phrase to be using, because gambling isn't a skill. It is by its very nature a gamble. The way most people gamble, the slot machine sorts of gambling, which is just a tax on people who aren't very good at the math involved, that says you're going to lose. These games are meant to produce a return for the store. Is that a big problem? I've never put a quarter into anything over at the casino because I don't like gambling. But this isn't a casino. This isn't the theater. The theater is aimed actually mostly at people who are of age of majority. This is crash crawlies. This is aimed at 8-year-olds. This is a type of gambling that's aimed at 8-year-olds, and I have a problem with it. I don't have an enormous problem with it, and I understand the arguments on the other side, but I can't support the expansion of this only because I don't support the first of the games in this establishment, let alone the fifth one. Thanks. Thank you, Lou. Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, thank you. As this very interesting and important discussion has evolved, it's given me some time to do some of my some researching here. And what I found in the research backed up something that's in the back of my mind about one of the prime causes of problem gambling. And a high percentage of problem gamblers have in their past an early big win of some sort. Well, that is, when they first started gambling, they won big and thought that was a natural course of things, or thought that they were unnaturally lucky in some way, and think, well, I'm lucky because I won all that when I started. And it's my understanding that these amusement games don't provide much of a chance to win anything. I mean, they're pastimes mostly. Collect coupons and things like that. So you're not going to get that big early win here. So in that sense, they will not be grooming youngsters to be potential gamblers or be problem gamblers. Penny, for your thoughts?
No, $100.
$100 for my thoughts. Okay, that's interesting. But the other things have been identified, and the big early win is a huge thing. It really gets into people's minds if they've won something big early on, that they can keep winning like that. If they've got some other things going. Stressful life, tendency to use escape as a way of coping, a poor understanding of randomness, and a susceptibility to boredom are some of those other factors. So, do any of these things factor into a couple of amusement games, essentially, as part of a whole package? I don't really think so. I'm not concerned about it. I think this is a prudent expansion to allow a little extra business. How does Coquitlam benefit from this? Well, we got some businesses that can be more successful, serve people more in the way they want to be served, amuse more people, make people happier. Maybe the happiness quotient will go up in the city. So I'll continue to support this. Thank you.
There you go. Shall we flip a coin or shall we take a vote?
Let's go with the vote this time.
Okay. The motion is the staff recommendation, or sorry, this is second, third, and fourth. All in favor? Opposed? Councillors Hodge, Nicholson, Sikora, and Mayor Stewart are opposed. The motion carries.
Item 10 is a report of the General Manager of Parks, Recreation, and Culture Services. This pertains to the Sports Hall of Fame funding. The two-part recommendation from staff is that Council reallocate the previously granted $5,000 provided to the Sports Hall of Fame for a community sports fair to the 2013 annual induction and award ceremony, and to direct staff to work with the Coquitlam Sports Hall of Fame Society to develop a draft service agreement, including a fee-for-service grant for this annual induction and award ceremony to be reviewed as part of the 2014 budget process.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Reamer. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. So, if I understand this correctly, they are still going to be short money, if I'm reading this correct, right? They need 10,000. They're going to have 5,000. What's the plan?
The awards evening budget is approximately $10,000. They're anticipating a fundraising campaign for $2,000 to $4,000. Most of that will be in kind, so not cash. It's the cash needed for the actual purchasing of the awards and some of the things that can't be done in kind.
Okay, so we provide some of that in kind stuff, I'm assuming?
Most of the in-kind stuff is provided through corporate sponsorships, not through the city.
Okay. And have they considered doing an award program every 2 years, given their financial challenges? I mean, I certainly appreciate how hard it is to raise funds. And are they committed to an annual, or would they consider maybe spreading it out to every other year?
That is an excellent idea and something they could look at. However, in 2008, when Council approved the governance and the awards structure for this, it outlined an annual awards ceremony as part of their operating model. So I believe they are trying to, keep up with the commitment they made to the city when the board was formed to do the awards on an annual basis.
Well, I certainly can't speak for all of Council, but if that's something that they would need to consider in order to make this viable, then I think that's worthy of exploration. Or if there's a better idea that it's every third year that they tie it to an Olympic or whatever, I think we'd like to continue this. But if it's annual, it's too hard to sustain, then let's look at another model. Thank you.
It certainly would be worth considering, I think, to perhaps even contemplate a celebration of sport every Olympic Games, winter and summer. Comes down to every 18 months or every 2.5 years, depending on the year. So I'd be in favor of that too. In any case, the motion before us. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 11 is a report of the Manager of Human Resources. It pertains to the Metro Vancouver Labour Relations function. The recommendation is that the Council of Coquitlam consents to the terms and conditions of withdrawal of the Greater Vancouver Regional District Labour Relations Services, Bylaw 1182, and approves the adoption of the Greater Vancouver Regional District Labour Relations Services, Bylaw 1182-2012, by providing consent on behalf of the electors.
Moved by Councillor Reamer, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. All in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously.
Item 12 is a notice of motion pertaining to single-family dwelling infill. It was presented by Councillor Sikora and seconded by Councillor Reid at the December 10th regular council meeting. The motion is that staff be directed to review the city's zoning bylaw to identify options for council's consideration to either revise existing regulations or include additional provisions in the bylaw to mitigate the impact of large single-family dwelling new construction, monster houses, in established Coquitlam neighborhoods. Pursuant to our procedure bylaw, Councillor Sikora has the right to speak first.
Thank you.
Councillor Sikora.
Thank you very much, Mayor. You know, this bylaw is probably about 2 or 3 years late coming. But however, what my problem with that is the fact that in the old parts of Coquitlam, you know, people have small cottages or half-decent kind of homes. They live there for 30, 35 years. All of a sudden, they're looking at a wall that's 35 feet high, that's 3 feet away from their home, with about 8,000 to 10,000 square foot house on a lot. Because I believe that they have something like, I believe the mayor, you changed it from 45 to 40% coverage here a few months ago. And I think it should be, like, yeah, no, you asked for the council to adopt that kind of policy and from something like 50%. So that was a given.
That was a staff recommendation, yeah.
We went down. Mm-hmm. But I think we need to come down quite a bit more. Number one, I've seen some of these houses. And the fact is, you know, what bothers me is the fact is this monster house right next to this other house that's fairly good size of home, but they're 3.5 feet away, 1 meter away from the house. But guess what? On the outside, they have stairs. They're going down to the basement. And where's the stairs? They're about 6 inches away from the other fence, from the other home. Now, is that fair or what's happening? I think it's about the worst thing I've ever seen. So there's something that we must be able to do to, I know, you know, like in northeast Coquitlam, okay, you have brand new homes being built, and they all could be monster houses. That's fine. Nobody has a quarrel with that, because when you're moving in there, you know what you're buying, or you know what you're building, or you know what's being built there. But in the other parts of Coquitlam, you got these monster houses that are, I'll tell you, to me, is a pain. I've had, matter of fact, I'll tell you what, the other day there was about 20 families going to come to the council chambers here to complain about it. I said, no, don't, I'll raise it as a notice of motion and see what we can do, you know, with the council. And, you know, frankly, to me, something has to be done about these monster houses, especially, you know, when there's a house that's about 8,000 square feet, and yet on the outside, they have a staircase going down to the basement on the outside. So what do you think that's going to be? Another dwelling? Of course it will be. Maybe 2 or 3 dwellings. Who knows what's going to be in there? So those are the concerns that I have, and I'd like to listen to some of the comments the other council members have. But that's my concern.
Councillor O'Neill.
Yes, I'm glad that Councillor Sikora explained his concerns dealing with the impact of large single-family dwellings in Coquitlam neighborhoods. I have a problem with the way this motion is worded, because there are many ways a large home can impact. I think we need to be quite a bit more specific here. There are positive impacts of large homes in that they generate more property tax revenue for the city. even though perhaps that there's only one family living in there, they might pay 2 or 3 times the property tax because assessment is so high. Do we want to mitigate, that is, make less severe that impact? So that's an impact of a monster home is beneficial to the city's coffers. And you're frowning here, but the way this is written, any impact, monster homes could lead to, instead of having, let's say a monster home is built in a housing choices area where there's 3 or 4 families could squeeze onto an existing lot with a monster home there, that is one large home, the impact on that neighborhood might be less traffic rather than having quadruplexes there. Let's say a quadruplex with 4 families, having a large home, a mansion or some sort, could be 1 or maybe 2 families if it has a secondary suite. So that's a positive impact, one would think, less traffic. So there are a variety of impacts of large homes. One of the impacts is on neighboring homes in which the home is quite small and feels that the big home dwarfs them and is out of proportion and ruins the harmony of the neighborhood. And I believe that that's what Councillor Sikora is talking about, so we need to be, if that's what we want to, if that's the mitigation that we want, we have to be specific about that because there are a lot of impacts, and as I've said, some impacts are positive. So I can't support this the way this is written. So somebody could amend it if they want. It's up to mitigate the impact of the is it a visual thing? Is it a aesthetic? Is it an aesthetic impact? Basically, the aesthetics is bad. If it's aesthetics, that's fine. You can say that. Aesthetic, it just feels bad. It looks bad. It's out of place. We feel like we've been shadowed over. So it's an aesthetic, adverse aesthetic impact. Maybe that's what you're looking for. And I would propose that as an amendment to mitigate the adverse aesthetic impact of large single-family dwellings.
I take that as an amendment.
Yes.
Is there a seconder to the amendment?
Second.
Okay. We'll deal with the amendment right now. The amendment is to add the word adverse aesthetic impact. Is there any discussion on that? Open not.
Mr. Chair, I'll start at QB.
Okay, it does look like we're going to need one. Okay.
Your Worship, sorry, I don't mean to intervene, but we have to be careful. We use the term aesthetic when it comes to single family because, remember, single family residential is one area we don't have development permits to get to that. But I think maybe it's not aesthetic, maybe if I could, it sounds like more it's scale, massing, and size relationship. Is that, are those? Yes. Okay.
That sounds exactly like what he meant.
Bang on. Okay. Size relationships.
Size relationships. That's what I meant.
So the motion that the amendment that you are proposing is?
What I actually meant is to mitigate the scale, massing,
Which is right.
impacts of the adverse scale, massing, and size relationship impacts of large single-family dwellings.
That's what I thought you said the first time.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
That's what you seconded. Okay.
That's right.
So the motion is related to the impact of the size.
Yeah.
QB, Councillor Sikora.
Thank you very much. Councillor O'Neill, I'd like to thank you for making the amendment because to me, it's an eyesore and many other things to me personally. But I don't know about other council members, and I'm getting also the discussion from the neighborhoods, many people in different neighborhoods, and the fact is, that can I resolve that myself by probably, coming up with a notice of motion that's perfect for everybody? No, I won't. There's no way. So I need help, and you exactly gave us the help that we need. So that's fine, because I'd like to see something done to what's happening now, because what's happening now is not good. How can we improve on it? Maybe this is the way. That'll be a great improvement. So I'll be certainly supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Asmundson on the amendment.
Well, the amendment goes to more clarify the whole issue. I just want to clarify a couple of comments earlier. I haven't received many emails or complaints about housing. I want to know if staff has had a lot of complaints, or is it an issue that has come up to staff's attention on a large amount of complaints, or is there any real complaints coming through staff?
Through the chair, on occasion, we do receive inquiries and complaints. Some of those are routed through a member of council, and they may have heard directly from a resident. By and large, they do come from the southwest area of our community, and it's in those neighborhoods, those established neighborhoods, where there is, I think what you're witnessing is sort of the natural evolution of many of these residential areas where back in the day the value or the cost was in the construction, so therefore the houses tended to be a smaller size, and it was a different time, a different period. And but now the value is in the land, and to utilize or fully capture that, we're seeing replacement of old bungalows from the 50s and 60s with houses that do meet zoning bylaw requirements, but are more sort of in line with the market demands of today. And so I think we're witnessing part of that that evolution of a neighborhood. And it's not just in Coquitlam, of course. You see this across the Lower Mainland. I know in Vancouver I'm familiar with, and across Burnaby it's happening in many of those sort of neighborhoods.
The other question, I guess, is on setbacks. Do we have and allow stairs 6 inches from a property line, or would that be not allowed within our zoning of a...
Through the chair again, I'd have to check on the details. I'm pretty sure it would be permitted. I would suggest, since it's been constructed and we usually go over those building plans, it's likely being treated as a landscape feature. It's not a structure above grade. If I understand the situation, maybe it's a retaining wall with a stairwell incorporated into that, so it's not a structure above the ground level, and so that likely could be built up to the property line. But that's the sort of thing we'd have to look into when we report back.
Okay. And I guess my issue is that we're going down an issue, and I look in some parts of Coquitlam that are going through this transition. You take Rochester from Blue Mountain going towards Lougheed, has transitioned to it. I think a lot of very beautiful homes within that area, and that whole area has gone into some larger homes from smaller homes because of the value of the land. But if we turn around as council, and when there's always action-reaction. So if you say to people that you can't build a larger house on this property, there's no value in rebuilding on that property on a single family, then you're going to look at either wanting to put multi-units on that'll still have a massing issue, or you have the ability of people wanting to come in and buy up multiple lots because people can't. The lot now is worth way more. And if you were to build, let's say, a 2,000 square foot house on a lot that's 700,000, you're not going to get the value's not there to do that. So that landowner now can't get that value to rebuild a single family house. So the only way then is to come to council and ask for a multifamily dwelling, whether it's in our housing choices. So you will still have the end effect of greater massing on the site, of more buildings on the site. They may be, rather than one 6,000 square foot house, you may have 2,000 square foot units still being tight together, closing the area off. So the idea that unless we say we're only going to allow houses to meet the height of the existing houses, and so we have to get careful, because I grew up in South Burnaby. The neighborhood my parents are going through in South Burnaby, where our house is sold, my parents have passed away, is transitioning through to larger houses on it because the market value, but it's staying as a single family neighborhood. So that the people have to realize is that, do they, as what Councillor Neal said, do they want to keep a single family neighborhood, or do they want to invite, which will happen, I think, more multifamily or more smaller lot, single family developments on 33, 30-foot lots, but you're still going to get the same massing in the end. So I think that we're trying to fix a problem that really isn't out there. And I think the other big issue that we have in this one when it comes up, and the last one, the email I got, is some people are concerned because their view is being blocked. You don't own a view, and people are building a higher, bigger house, but they could build more multifamily houses that still have the same height. We're on the amendment. Yeah, it goes to the amendment talks about the height and everything. It just clarifies the point.
Understood. Okay.
Okay? It still is in the same realm. So are we, by doing this, are we going to solve anything? I don't think so. Are we going to make it more difficult for a landowner to develop a single-family home? Yes, we probably will if we restrict it too much. Secondly, you're looking at houses built 40, 50, 60 years ago. Our house was 1,600 square feet in Burnaby. People want 2,500, 3,000 square foot houses. So are we going to put a limit on the size of houses also?
Well, let's see what options they come.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Robinson, this is on the amendment.
Oh, on the amendment. Well, it's hard. Well, on the sure. I'll speak.
Or we can set aside and you can come back on the
Fine. Fine. I'll come back to speak to the whole thing.
Okay, Councillor Reamer on the amendment.
Thank you. I've had a couple of complaints about monster houses, and I appreciate Councillor O'Neill's amendment for scale massing and size relationships. But there's also another issue here that has come up in the complaints that I've received, and that's that of environment and the cutting down of trees and bushes to facilitate the large structure. And so, as Councillor Asmundson has said, you're really not going to solve, probably not going to solve that problem either. If you replace a monster house with a multifamily, same thing's probably going to happen. So I'm willing to look at the options. I actually like the way the motion was worded in that it says it's asking that staff be directed to review, to identify options for council's consideration. That doesn't mean that if we pass this motion tonight that we have to pass the options that are presented to us. So I say, in view of the fact that we have received these concerns, I'm willing to accept the amendment on this and then
on the
final
amendment,
motion.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I don't see any other debate on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment? All oppose the amendment? The amendment carries unanimously. Back to QA.
Back to QA.
Councillor O'Neill, are you done?
No, I will just add that I'm, because this is simply asking staff to look at the options that we might consider, that I'm very pleased to look at these options. I've heard these concerns myself, and I frankly think that it's a very, very difficult issue for some of the reasons that Councillor Asmundson enunciated. But I'll be, happy to see what our expert staff comes up with. Is that maybe there is something there that we can deal with, and but so I wait with not just anticipation, but with eager anticipation the outcome of their work. Thank you.
Okay. This stuff comes around regularly in municipalities. I believe the last time we saw it in our municipality was about 97 or so, I think, 96 maybe. You brought in was an architect from Vancouver that came in and did a process on monster houses and trying to manage the RS1 stuff. At the time, I was also on the committee in Vancouver called the RS1, RS1S Advisory Committee, dealing with essentially the same kind of stuff, although they have a charter so they could deal with it in lots of different ways. It is particularly a challenge as neighborhoods evolve, and I think it's an appropriate time to have a look at this thing, particularly since many of the buildings that are replacing our existing homes in single-family neighborhoods. I'm contemplating the one on Foster, just east of Poirier, for example, which is so enormously out of character with the row of bungalows that exists along that road, and we recognize that that neighborhood will evolve. It won't be bungalows forever. They're quarter-acre lots, and quarter-acre lots are worth too much to have 800 to 1,000 square foot homes on them. Our challenge, though, is that we are encouraging something called housing choices. Housing choices says we want smaller homes, some different options, carriage homes, perhaps 2 homes, 3 homes on the same lot. These are some other options for allowing better densities in our neighborhoods on the quarter-acre model, on the quarter-acre gross density lot. But those options are competing with the rights that people have with these lots. And one of the rights is to build a $1.5 to $2 million home on the same lot. It's a great big home. It will house sometimes just the one household, many times several households. And it will house them, if it's more than two households, it will house them illegally. It will house them not necessarily safely, and certainly they won't have met the building code requirements. They won't have the off-street parking that we're going to require if we went with the housing options sorts of approach. And it doesn't really improve affordability a whole lot in the same way that housing options was designed to improve affordability. It's also the case that the duplex doesn't do that. The duplex is 2 units on the same single-family home that anyone can build 2 units on, the 2 units being a secondary suite and the main suite. So I want to see us start to look at some of those options that compete with housing options and try to make some of them less palatable by saying that, no, we don't need 7,000 square foot single-family homes on 60-foot lots. We don't need homes that go straight up 3 stories. We don't need them to have that bulk of above-grade mass. And that ultimately was the challenge we faced in Coquitlam in '97. There was new rules adopted that I think stood the test of time for 15 years. And now it's time to have another look at how do we prevent the wholesale change of existing neighborhoods by the massive invasion of one enormous home on a lot that isn't designed for that size of home. There are going to be homes on Westwood Plateau or homes in Burke Mountain even, where the lots are designed for the style of house we're designing for. That's what we're going to get. But the quarter-acre lot in Maillardville wasn't designed for $1.5 million, $2 million home that stretches into 8,000 square feet. That's not within the realm of what was intended when the lots were created 80 years ago. So I think the time has come to do this. I was actually looking through some of the minutes of meetings in 1996 and 97, and I found one that deals with some of the elements, but it also deals with Glenbrook's sewer, and it deals with electronic gambling. Councillor Hollington wanted a prohibition on electronic gambling, and there was a proposal to prohibit smoking at the sports center. Oddly enough, these things have all come back to us tonight. So I will support the, essentially Councillor Sikora and I once again are in lockstep. Councillor Robinson.
I love the flavor of this meeting, this togetherness. Councillor Asmundson wanted to know if this was an issue, and when I door knocked in 2008, I kept track of what issues people were bringing forward, and the 2 top issues were transit and safety. And in 2011, the issues were taxes and monster homes. That's just what I heard from people. Those were the 2 issues. So I think the timing is perfect. I also tweeted out 10 minutes ago, as this conversation was starting, that Coquitlam Council is talking monster homes. Thoughts? So I have learned that White Rock has stopped what she called excessively large homes. They changed the top floor to 80% of the bottom floor, and they only allow 1 basement. And what I've learned, is that apparently Surrey, White Rock, New West all have good ones, according to one of their councillors. So they've been coming in fast and furious. So I think there's some other folks who have looked at this. Clearly, we're not alone in that, and look forward to hearing what staff have to bring back so that we can be informed and make a good decision whether or not this is something we want to act on or something that we ought not to act on. So I think the first thing is to get more information. So I'm prepared to ask staff to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hodge on the sewer on Glenbrook. Sorry, on monster homes.
You know, I think our neighborhoods are changing, and like Councillor Robinson, I heard about it when I was door knocking, and I heard about it particularly in the neighborhood where I grew up, in around the Thermal Drive and Foster area, and we've had letters from residents, and a couple of homes in that area where existing homes were built in 1959 and 1960s, came down and replaced with a home that's built to a standard that's different than what the rest of the neighborhood is. And I appreciate what Councillor Asmussen said, because they are challenging. The value of these homes is in the lot, and when a new owner comes in, they want to build something that's reflective of the value of the lot. And it's a challenge to make the economics work. But when they do, when these lots are in transition and they impact the existing neighbors, and we hear about trees coming down and, you know, and a number of issues that are surrounding this. And so I think it is time to look at it. I think we owe it to the residents of yesterday and residents of today as to how we can look at possible ways to mitigate some of the impact of our changing city. And, you know, I think that there may be opportunities to look at what some of the other cities are doing in the area. And so I'd like to hear what they're doing and see what options that we have. So I'm going to support this going forward and look forward to hearing more in the future on it.
And there you go. The motion is slightly amended. Is the notice motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Your Worship, that is the final formal item on this agenda.
Moved by Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Councillor Robinson to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. As is